morning, I'm Agustín Zepeda for NewZtar Intelligence. Here is your global briefing for Friday, June 5, 2026. US employers added 172,000 jobs in May, well above expectations, but the news triggered a massive sell-off in technology stocks. The Nasdaq 100 plunged 3% as investors bet the strong labor market will force the Federal Reserve to raise interest rates. Meanwhile, unemployment ticked up to 4.3%, and the Swiss National Bank cut rates by half a point to stimulate its economy. But here is where the coverage diverges. American public media frames the jobs data as positive economic strength, while American financial outlets and European media emphasize the threat to markets and unwanted volatility. Russian and Chinese state media have been largely silent on this story. Russian President Vladimir Putin delivered a major address at the St. Petersburg International Economic Forum, flatly rejecting any meetings with Ukrainian President Zelensky. Putin emphasized Russia will continue its military operation and praised India for refusing to follow what he called Western diktat. Tanzania's president attended the forum, calling it a significant platform for economic dialogue. But here is where the coverage diverges. American media frames Putin as responding to pressure to end the war, while Russian state media presents a triumphant rejection of talks emphasizing Western economic decline. Indian media prominently features Putin's praise for India's independence, which Western outlets largely ignore. Chinese President Xi Jinping is scheduled to visit North Korea, demonstrating China's continued strategic commitment to the nuclear-armed regime. The visit comes as Pyongyang also hosts senior Russian officials. According to China's People's Daily, the trip signals deepening coordination between China, Russia, and North Korea amid broader geopolitical tensions. But here is where the coverage diverges. American media emphasizes the nuclear dimension and China's leverage over a threatening regime, while Chinese state media frames this as routine diplomacy on the normal calendar. European outlets express alarm about trilateral China-Russia-North Korea coordination. Ireland has imposed travel bans on Israeli government ministers, marking a sharp escalation in Middle East diplomatic tensions. The move comes as Hezbollah publicly denounced Lebanon's ceasefire proposals, and the IDF reportedly issued evacuation warnings for Tehran. Separately, NASA ordered International Space Station astronauts to shelter during an air leak incident. But here is where the coverage diverges. European outlets frame Ireland's action as justified diplomatic pressure, while American media questions its effectiveness. Middle Eastern media emphasizes the Tehran evacuation warnings prominently, which Western sources have not independently verified. The U.S. Senate passed a $70 billion immigration enforcement bill that funds ICE operations through the remainder of President Trump's term. The legislation significantly expands detention and deportation capacity. However, senators blocked extensions of controversial surveillance programs following recent intelligence community scandals. But here is where the coverage diverges. American conservative outlets frame this as essential border security, while progressive American media emphasizes humanitarian concerns and family separation risks. European media questions the massive spending level, and Chinese state media highlights American domestic division. Iran's inflation rate has reached levels not seen since World War II, devastating the country's economy amid continued international sanctions. The crisis compounds pressure on Tehran's government, as citizens struggle with skyrocketing food and energy costs. Meanwhile, Hitachi and Intel announced a partnership to optimize AI chip production. But here is where the coverage diverges. American and European media frame the crisis as demonstrating sanctions' effectiveness against the regime, while Middle Eastern outlets emphasize civilian suffering. Russian media highlights Western economic warfare, and Chinese state media largely minimizes the story. That is your NewZtar Intelligence briefing for Friday, June 5, 2026. News in every angle, every morning. I'm Agustín Zepeda. Stay informed.